I'm Sagar Ukkere. I'm application engineer at MathWorks. I'm with MathWorks last 4 years, focusing on developing AI application, mostly with MATLAB and our tools and deployment into cloud environment. So today we'll be talking about how you can do the data analysis with MATLAB. I will be sharing some tips, techniques, and there will be live demo. Like I will be showing kind of like real data in MATLAB. So before we go further, I have two logistic points. If you can't hear me properly, please let us know. So team FİGES will notify me so that we can fix that. And if you can't see the presentation also, please reach out to us. With that, I can go ahead and please write your questions in chat. So team will be monitoring that. And I will be taking your questions at the end because most of the things will be covered during presentation itself. With that, I will go ahead. So what we are going to talk about today is first is like how you can use these low code tools. So kind of like because you coming from different background, so engineering, scientists, and you're working different domains. So instead of you putting a lot of efforts to learn those software skills, how we can enable our tools to use for your day-to-day work or complex projects. And I will be showing some demo with this flight sensor data, and then I will be sharing some resources also. So what basically today's demo looks like. So this is what we'll be creating today at the end of our session. So where you will have such report type of your code executables, kind of like working example, and how you can share such example with your colleagues or with your partners. For example, how will import data, you will put some kind of rich text. It's all happening in MATLAB. So I will be showing that today. So then you visualize the data, then do some pre-processing, and then kind of like analytics workflow, like applying some machine learning or maybe like advanced analytics. So I will be switching back and forth from MATLAB and presentation. So what we are trying to achieve here. So from MathWorks, like our these two products like MATLAB Simulink and a lot of different toolbox, they come up with this low code tools. So when we talk about the data analysis workflow, so how those tools are fitting. So I'll be showing some today, and when I share resources with you, you can have also look and you can try out also. So in all data analysis workflow projects, irrespective of which industry you're working on. So first thing, you want to access your data. So data is maybe like in your local drives, or maybe it's coming some cloud, or maybe it's in the databases like traditional databases, or maybe data coming from different hardware. So today we are talking about sensor data. So data coming from the different such hardware platform. So we do support such different type of engineering data, business data, how you can access them. Then once you access the data, you carry out what we call as exploratory data analysis, and that what we'll be seeing. So in this, you access the data, you visualize the data, because that's the first thing as a data analyst. You need to see whether you are working on the right data or not, and you will do some visual checks. So kind of issues like if there are like missing values or maybe some outliers, because you are subject experts in your area, you can identify those issues because of your knowledge in that field, right? So that's where visualization come into picture. Then the algorithm development. So for example, today we'll be focusing how we can model our algorithm to predict true airspeed. So like in the aircraft or the flight data, there are like different sensors involved when you are taking the flight from taxi phase to cruise and then landing. So how the true airspeed is impacted with different sensors. And then it's not only development you want to do, but you want to deploy it somewhere, right? So maybe like you want to give access to the your customers, or maybe like you as small development team develop this, but there are like business people in your like or analysts who don't have MATLAB, but they want to try out with their data. So that's where kind of like different kind of like application development happens. And then you share your that entire work with colleagues, your customers. And this is not linear approach, right? Because the people who work in data analysis, they can relate this. It's kind of like trying out different trial and errors. And it's always comes with the objective, like what goal you are trying to achieve, like whether it's accuracy, whether it's like speed and all those things. And I showed you the PDF, but there are various ways how you can share this. And the good thing is in entire ecosystem of MathWorks, like MATLAB Simulink, the philosophy we carry is like you write once and take it anywhere. So the MATLAB code which you have written today for MATLAB data analysis, you can share with enterprise application like or cloud, or maybe like you generate source code and deploy into your hardware. So it basically it's with some single clicks you achieve that, and that's what it makes very simpler to use. And so when we talk about low code, so this comes from the software development background. So what exactly is like you solve the task and then code later. So for example, you might have done this plotting stuff. So most of you who use MATLAB. So then if I want to basic example, but it's kind of like similar to all our low code tools. If you see the code is getting updated automatically. So, and you don't need to write code. And we'll be seeing today in all our workflow, from the data access to final this machine learning model development, we are not writing code at all. So it's all taken care with these low code tools. And if you see this code is getting auto updated, and then you can tweak it as per your need. And it's not only for the people who are not from software industry, but our tools are used by engineers and scientists. So they don't need to spend too much time to learn those software skills. So it's very fast to get into hands-on with our tools for your solving your problems. So as I said, I will be showing now live example. So what we are doing is like we are creating this virtual sensor model. So to object kind of like modeling to detect true airspeed based on different sensor data. We'll visualize it. We'll do some kind of like data pre-processing, and then we build machine learning model, and then finally we'll share. And this is like data set where we are accessing the today's file. So now I will go to the MATLAB. So this is MATLAB 2024B. So the people might be new to this. What I will so this has a lot of things. For example, it has different apps galleries. So based on as your toolboxes, or for example, if you are working in like radio frequency mixed signal, so it's kind of easy to use those apps. Or base MATLAB, for example, if you want to find out how code compatibility is there when you are doing some version update, or maybe like dependency analyzer when you have a lot of different complex like setup in your projects. Or when we talk about machine learning, deep learning, so these apps, they have, for example, it's kind of like plug and play environment, and underneath those apps are generating code for you, and we'll be seeing that today. And not only that, so for example, we'll be using this live script so to create today's project. It consists not only just apps, but you can generate plots also, and we'll be seeing that. So what we'll be working today, so this is how you may relate. So this is kind of like sensor data or the flight data on 6th of Feb. So these are like different sensors. I'm not expert from this aero industry, but one can relate this, right? So these are different kind of like sensor values are collected for that particular flight journey, and we are modeling for true airspeed, right? And we'll be saying, so this is how data looks like. So what we can do, we can just directly load it. For example, just I load it here. Our MATLAB will automatically read it, or I can do programmatically kind of like read table, right? But since we are talking about low code and we want to do such things as automated fashion, so it's not one Excel file. Maybe you are working on thousands, or maybe like multiple of thousands. So where we'll start? So here is kind of like app we call so low. what it is doing. So I'm just passing that my Excel file to this app. And if you see, we saw in Excel, so kind of like similarly, it is finding out what the data type of that particular column information. So you can also change if you want how you want to have the output. So it says, okay, the first row is kind of like header information. And if there are like unimportable cells, for example, if there are nans, how you want to address that. So these things can be done automatically. And let's say like there are like 14 here sensors. I don't want to. So for example, I don't think so. This value makes sense for my analysis. So these are kind of like plug and play you do. So let's say like weight on wheels. This is something I don't see make any value. And then I have selected the data, and this is what the magic comes. So for example, I can import the data as it is. I can generate live script, and we'll be seeing that in a short, or script or function. So for now, let me just access the data, and we'll come back again here. And so this is kind of like data has been kind of like accessed in MATLAB. So let me see if we are getting the same data what we were seeing in that apps, right? So if you see here, I can relate. So it's kind of like same Excel data what we saw, and since this is MATLAB, you can do pretty many things. For example, I can directly find out kind of like how my fuel quantity sensor data looks like. I just can directly plot on that particular column itself. So it's basically like giving you a lot of different options where you can go with this. Since we are talking about this kind of like creating this as example, so for multiple such Excel files, it's not just one file we will be addressing, but we want to do some automation, right? Because it's not kind of like handy or easy to come every time for these apps. And that's where comes this generate function. So if you see here, creating function, so all those settings, let me make it a little bit bigger. So you can, so it is giving how you can import that particular file. It's kind of like example. And then all those things, what we did in the underneath, for example, selecting the variable types, it does for you automatically. So if you see, I am not writing single line of command. And to do some sanity check, let me save this. It gives kind of like random names, but as per your convenience, you can choose. For example, let me see if I am getting the right data or not. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And when it comes to such industry problems, so most of the time, so the data scientists spend time, like 80% of time in the initial phase itself, because it's so crucial for your data analysis workflow, accessing the data, doing exploratory data analysis. So now we saw in all our phases, it's kind of like we are getting the right data. We saw in Excel, then we saw in the workspace, and now here with this command. So once we are satisfied with this, so where we go further. So as I said, we'll be creating that report the way I showed you in the first place. So how we do that? So we have this kind of like interactive editor. It's called like live script we call. So here you put a lot of things, like you can put text, you can have kind of like different control options. For example, if you want to give some range of values or dates or file browser, so underneath it is doing code for you and different tasks also. So we'll be touching that time to time. So what we are doing here, so let's say like I take the same thing here. So because we want to create some executable example to share with our colleagues or maybe like customers. So it has to be some kind of like in the form of report, right?